Welcome to another edition of the Touchdown Club Coaches Show. Coach Masella, Max Rottenecker here. Coach, I missed you last week. Did you get some time away from the game a little bit, or does the brain never stop rolling?
Well, we practiced a couple times. You're always thinking of how you can get better and improve, but it was also good to give the kids some time off and our coaches get away from me, because I haven't been a real pleasant guy in the office. So it was good. Everything was good, and guys are energized to come back and hopefully get better and hopefully win a few games down the stretch.
So you had a week where you didn't have to prepare for an opponent. Is there something that you do differently in the obviously you do things a little bit differently in the bye week? You mentioned the practices, but maybe you watched some additional film, or did you evaluate your program a little differently than you would in a game week?
Well, we evaluate what we're doing. That's constant, but more so we're worried about ourselves and what we're doing. So we went out and practiced a couple days and just focused on the fundamentals and taking a look at even some more young guys, but just taking a look of what we have to do and improve upon, but also taking a look at our players in the program and who's going to be a part as we move forward, and we graduate a pretty big class, so we got to take a look at a lot of young guys also. So it's one of those things you want to keep them fresh. We didn't hit, we didn't really bang a lot, but we worked on a lot of fundamentals, special teams, and offense, defense, and just trying to get better.
You mentioned the young guys. Obviously, a lot of players saw action against Fordham. In previous games, you've played a lot of young players. You've started a lot of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen in games so far. Is that part of what you looked at in the summer and were like, this is what I'm going to do? Or is that just something that was an intuitive decision?
Well, you look at it, we don't want to be playing that many young players, but they've given us the best options to compete, and so we'd rather not be playing freshmen and redshirt freshmen, but that's what we have to deal with right now, and hopefully it will pay dividends down the road. But we have some great upperclassmen who've done a great job, but we just don't have enough of them for what we see and where we're going. So young guys get the opportunity to play, and quite frankly, a lot of those guys aren't ready to take the amount of snaps that they've taken, but it is what it is. And the Fordham game was disappointing because I didn't think we competed for the first time. I thought the Dell State game took a lot out of us, the double overtime loss, and it really showed itself at Fordham. So, the break couldn't have come at a better time to get away and come back and say, okay, we got 5 games left. Let's see how much we can improve and see if we can steal some wins down the stretch.
And you mentioned it pays off. How much does it mean to a young player who is, or an older player who is a senior or junior, if they've played as a young player and just playing over and over again and getting used to college football, even if the result may not be what they're looking for right now?
I think there's a benefit, but I also think that there's a portion of it where some of these young guys playing for us are not ready to play college football, play 50 snaps a game and 45 snaps a game, and the wear and tear on them takes its toll. And the Fordham game, I think the Delaware State game took a mental toll on a lot of our players, so there's a reward that they're gaining experience, but there's also a negative factor that you're losing football games, and that takes a mental toll on a lot of people.
That's interesting, though, the physical part of it. I know there's 5 games left, and most coaches will say, oh, the next game is always the most important game. But do you look at some of your players and you're like, I can't wait for you to come back and add 10, 15, 20 pounds in the spring, and I can't wait to see what you're going to be a year down the road or 2 years down the road.
That's the one thing, and we're a small team by my standards. I think we're a small team. And that's the kids who are playing. They don't have a year or two in the program. So, we've gotten knocked around in some games. In other games, we've competed. But, it's one of those deals that, they're going to get bigger and stronger. And that's what you got to keep preaching. Listen, keep doing the right things. Keep competing. Keep giving great effort. And one day we'll be in a position to compete and win games in the second half of games. And that's really been our biggest problem is we can't finish games right now. And I think a lot of that has to do physically. We're just not in a position to do that.
But another opportunity to get a win coming up this Saturday, and we're going to preview Bryant coming up after the break. It's the Touchdown Club Coaches Show on NEC Front Row. Welcome back to the show. It's time to look at this week's opponent, Bryant. There's a lot of familiar faces on both sidelines. I was like I said on the show, I was surprised you weren't in the homecoming tent at Fordham. And this week's a homecoming game, or a familiar game for a lot of coaches on both sides of the ball. How much does that make an impact? Northeast Conference football against an opponent that you played in the spring. Some of the coaches on your staff played at Bryant. Some of the coaches on Bryant's staff played at Wagner. So you guys might know each other better than any team that you'll play all season.
Well, I look at it. I was at Bryant at 19, and you can see those guys have grown up. They Coach Merritt and their staff and Steve Siassi and all those guys have done a great job. And they're winning a lot of close games that a couple of years ago they lost. So, I look at them and say, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel for us. But there are a lot of familiar faces, a lot of good people over there. They do a great job, and I'm sure it's one of those things Steve wants to knock our head in, and I'm sure Logie and CJ on our staff would like to knock Bryant's head in. So, that's football. I mean, there's a friendly rivalry, but you want to come out on top, and we do know. I'm sure they know our defense. I see their personnel, and I've seen how they've grown and what type of players they are. So there's a little familiarity that way. But the closest thing was the game in the spring, and they kind of knocked us around a little bit. And our kids have got to understand that they're a physical team, that you better buckle up that day or you're going to get knocked around. And certainly our kids experienced that in the spring, and hopefully they'll come ready to go this week.
Now, when you watch the NFL in particular, they talk about, hey, a player gets traded, so then there's dummy calls and any of that. Will you have to worry about that at all, or is there no familiarity between the defense that you oversee here and the defense that you called in 19 at Bryant?
Oh no, there's a lot of carryover. I mean, but our guys are still learning our calls. So to give dummy calls is we're playing a double-edged sword there. But no, we'll run our stuff, and we're 6 weeks in. I'm sure they know what we're doing, and I think we understand what they're trying to do, and go play football and see if we can play well and get the game into the third and fourth quarter and see if our players can make enough plays to win a game. I mean, it's really simple. They're playing for something. We're kind of playing the spoiled role at this point, and let's see how we go and how we match up.
Now, does it help you to get a couple extra days to prepare for another opponent? Did you watch some Bryant film last week, maybe a little bit, just peeked in, or?
Oh yeah, we looked at some Bryant film. I mean, you can't avoid it, but we were doing a lot more recruiting, and we did good. We did good on good. Wagner versus Wagner last week. We didn't spend any time. Worrying about game plans for Bryant, and that was more because we have a lot of work to do for ourselves. It's not that we're not concerned about Bryant. Is we have to get better on defense, offense, and special teams. So it was more Wagner versus Wagner. But no, obviously we took a peek at the film and looked at things that we're going to call. This coming week that fit into our Wagner versus Wagner week last week. So yeah, we got to look at film, but we didn't really start game planning until Friday. So
some great insight there. Can't wait to see everyone at Hamline Field again on Saturday. We're going to take another break. It's the Touchdown Club Coaches Show on NEC Front Row. Welcome back to the show, Coach. A lot of improvement happening throughout the program. Some of it, obviously, with the players and the coaches, but also broke ground on a new building this summer. And how excited are you, and how big is this going to be for your football program to move along with this?
Well, I think that's it's really, really big. It's big in many areas. One, for our players. They deserve the building that we're going to be moving into. It's a nice size space as far as locker room, equipment room, training room. There's a weight room in there, and eventually we'll have meeting rooms and things of that nature. And that's for our players, and that's well deserved. If you look at it, that's Coach Hamline and the fundraising he's done, and the games that our players have played, those so-called Power 5 games that we're still playing, and that's all a part of upgrading our program to one day that we're going to have a new home for our players and coaches and meeting rooms and things of that nature that helps not only our players that are here now and our coaches, but it also helps the recruiting that we're going to be doing in the future. And it's great to see a hole finally in there. I can't wait to see foundations and frames being put up, and then you can start to picture what it's going to be. And they talk about next summer that us moving into that new facility, and we're certainly excited for that for many reasons. But for our players here and the players we're going to be recruiting, they get to see, okay, there's some facilities that are being added on to Wagner College, and we're excited for that.
It's always good to see a campus with some cranes and some construction workers on it, because that means that there's progress happening. How convenient will it be for you? You mentioned eventually there's going to be meeting rooms and a locker room there, and obviously right now you're a little bit more across the street. I mean, it can't hurt to go from the meeting room right outside and be right on the field.
I think from a player experience, to be able to go from the training room to the locker room to the weight room, and possibly, down the road meeting rooms right in the same building, it's time efficiency. It allows our players to gain a couple minutes, couple hours, where they're not walking from one building to another. But I think it's a home for them, where they can hang their hat. There's going to be a players' lounge in there, so All those things, enhance the student athlete's experience, and certainly we need it, and we're looking forward to the day that we move into that building.
Players Lounge. We'll stream the video game tournament that you and I will be playing in that Players Lounge live on NEC Front Row as well, I'm sure. We can't wait for this new facility. Obviously, thank you to the Touchdown Club for the support in getting this building done as well. And so, Coach, good luck this Saturday, and thank you for tuning in. This was the Touchdown Club Coaches Show on NEC Front Row.